Hey everyone, today I've got 7 tips to help you improve in your matches just by following some of these quick tips. Christmas is right around the corner, and here at GameLeap we have a present for you. You can use code SANTA for 50% off your GameLeap subscription. And not only that, if you sign up during this Christmas season, you will have a chance to win a VOD review from one of our top coaches. We will be picking 10 random GameLeap subscribers, so make sure you sign up today if you want to improve now. The first tip that I have is you need to be confident in yourself. If you're not confident in your own aim or your gameplay ability, the chances are you are not going to be performing to your best ability. And if you're afraid of facing your enemies and you're not thinking about how to beat them, you're going to have a much worse time playing against them, and you'll always be worrying about your own gameplay. Developing confidence in yourself, your aim, and your gameplay is a really important skill you must learn so that you can dominate your game. If you are constantly losing 1v1s to any enemy DPS, it can be really disheartening, but you always have to come right back out of spawn with a fresh look at the game instead of dwelling on your past mistakes. What you should be doing is identifying why you died, how you died, and what you can do to improve after that. And the next tip I have is understanding how to improve. Improving in any game is very difficult if you don't know how to actually learn. When you're playing Overwatch, or any game for that matter, you need to take in all of the experiences you go through and try and come up with solutions on the fly. Or you can write down or even go over your own VODs and try and understand why you made the decisions you did, and maybe you could even change those decisions in the future. No matter if you're a brand new player or you've been playing since the beginning of Overwatch 1, you still have things to learn and improve upon. And you should never be 100% confident that you have the right answers to every problem. And many times there are simple and easy ways to improve upon the things that you're already doing if you're just playing with an open mind. What you should be doing is questioning every single death you have, thinking about the things you can improve upon or the things you could do differently, whether it's just not standing in the open whenever they have a Widowmaker, or learning how to read your enemy's next moves or anticipate what they're going to do with their ultimates. You always want to be thinking about what you could do more of so that you can win your games. The next tip is counterpicking. Now that you can retain up to 30% ultimate charge whenever swapping between heroes, no matter what happens in the first fight, whether you die or win, you can easily check the scoreboard, identify the heroes on the enemy team, and swap to counter them with almost no downside. Then you can come back from spawn, whether you died in first fight or you lost it, and be on a counter pick for the enemies, which gives you a much higher chance of winning the next fight, and you still have your ultimate charge. Overwatch is a game where you can't just pick one hero and expect to win every game. Many heroes have a counter that can easily ruin your experience by one-tricking a certain hero. If you're a Doomfist only player and the enemy team is always picking Roadhog to counter you, you're not going to have a very good time, and maybe you learn to play around Roadhog, but almost all of the time your teammates are going to suffer because you are on a bad pick. So it's time to start branching out and learning new heroes, as well as which heroes counter what. And if you need to know which heroes counters what, you can check out our counter vids. Next tip, following your team as an immobile support can be really bad. If you are a support player and you are on Ana or Brigitte or pretty much any other support that doesn't have a lot of movement options like Zen, if you follow your teammates up to a choke point and they start backing away as the enemies get there and you get caught out and die, it's your fault, okay? If you're walking up and trying to damage the enemies at a choke point, getting in front of your teammates, you should not be doing that. As a support, you should almost never be pushing up so that you can see the enemies, and what you really want to be doing is playing far back so that the enemies come to the choke point while you are able to see it and in a safe position. You really only want to be exposing yourself to enemies on certain heroes like Kiriko, sometimes Zen, Moira, and Lucio, but even on heroes like Zenyatta, you don't really want to get close to the enemies at all. You want to make sure that on every support you play, you try not to ever go ahead of your teammates, and you always back away as your teammates back away to avoid avoid unnecessary deaths. Speaking of positioning, the next tip is to always be checking your positioning. I know it may seem simple, but just look around every 10 to 15 seconds and try and understand where your teammates are relative to the enemies. If you're completely alone and the enemies are in between you and your teammates, unless you have some sort of plan in mind, you need to reposition and go back to your teammates. Many players will just zone out and forget where their teammates are, they'll go way too far forward, end up dying and throwing the round. You always want to be positioning somewhat near your teammates unless you're a flanker like Tracer or Sombra, where you can easily escape on your own. A simple way to never be out of position is to pick a teammate to stick near, whether it's a support or tank or a DPS, and then just kind of shadow them wherever they go, and you'll have a much easier time staying alive. Next up, do not waste your ultimate. Wasting your ultimate is a very easy thing to do in Overwatch, but it's really not always very easy to know whether you should or shouldn't use your ultimate in a fight. Before every fight breaks out, a good tip is to open up the scoreboard and just look at what ultimates your teammates have. If your team has all 5 ultimates, the chances that you need all 5 of those ultimates to win the next fight are very low unless the enemy team also has 5 ultimates. So with this in mind, there are other big factors that come into whether you use your ultimate or not. And the number one factor that I think is important is the either percentage of the control point that you've captured or how close you are to the next checkpoint on your payload map. Alternatively, for the push game mode, how close you are to either winning a fight and pushing it further than your enemies, or maybe you're getting close to the end. The important thing is the objective in almost every single scenario. You almost always never want to be using all of your ultimates whenever you are already winning. So for example, if you are at 80% in the control point and the enemies are at 50%, it might be better to just fight on point, not use a single one of your ultimates, let the enemies use their ultimates to win that fight, then come back, wipe the enemy team with all of your ultimates, and then just capture to win the round. It's a very simple thing to think about, but you have to make sure that you are always focusing on the objective and whether winning this next fight is going to win you the game or not. Because if you just use your ultimates defending the point and the enemies end up winning it anyways, you have no ultimates to retake the objective, which means that you are either going to lose or the enemies are going to rebuild all their ultimates while you have to rebuild your ultimates. The next thing about ultimates for using them or not using them is comboing them. Whenever possible, you want to combo your ultimates with at least one teammate, unless you have an ult that really just can't combo with anybody. Now, anytime you can combo your ultimates, you always want to be communicating with your teammates. If you have an Ana in your Genji, just say, hey, I'm gonna dash up this fight, nano me. Because if you don't communicate with your teammates, you're probably not going to get nearly as much value out of your ultimates as you could. So make sure that whether you're typing, pinging, or just spamming the I have ultimate button and looking at your Ana, make sure you're trying to communicate a little bit whenever you're going to use your ults. And for our final tip, making plans is really important. Whether it's talking with your teammates or just making your own plans in your head, having a good idea on what you want to do offensively and defensively can be a really easy way to win your games. Plans can be as simple as a flank route or the idea that you're going on the flank, getting one pick, and then leaving immediately, and then following that plan to its completion. So for example, if you are a Cassidy player, you do a quick flank, you get a pick on the enemy support, and then you just stay there until you end up dying. That is not following the plan. But if you go on the flank, get a pick, immediately fall back, and then you win the fight with your teammates, that is following a very simple and effective plan. Plans can get really complicated as well, whether it's involving multiple ultimates or flanking with multiple people. You really want to be communicating whenever possible, especially if you're trying to work with teammates on your plans. But another easy and simple way to make plans is for your escape routes. You always want to have an idea in the back of your mind on any push or flank as to how you're going to get out. If you go too far into the enemies and you have no plan for your escape, you're either as good as dead or you're going to be focusing way too much on actually figuring out where to go. You always want to identify where you'll retreat, and sometimes when you're going to retreat, whether it's after a teammate gets picked or after you get a pick, then you need to stick to your plan whenever the fight breaks out. Having these plans will allow you to think of much more important things whenever you're getting into the fight. It also helps you not panic whenever things go wrong. If you have a good idea of what you're going to do before you do it, you no longer need to waste time thinking in crucial moments. And that is all the tips I have for you guys in this video. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Christmas is right around the corner, and here at GameLeap, we have a present for you. You can use code SANTA for 50% off your GameLeap subscription. And not only that, if you sign up during this Christmas season, you will have a chance to win a VOD review from one of our top coaches. We will be picking 10 random GameLeap subscribers, so make sure you sign up today if you want to improve now.